Boker Tov. Thank you to Becca and Alex for being here on a Sunday, which is a work day in Israel, and it's a little bit later in the day for them as well. I know for so many of us, since October 7th, we're thousands of miles away, and right away, as soon as this war started, everyone wanted to know what they can do. We all feel so deeply connected to Israel and to friends and family who are there, and as Jewish people, very much want to do our part. And we've done a number of things at Temple Israel already, and I just speak with incredible pride in our community for what we've done for Magen David Adom, for the ambulance service. As I shared on Shabbat, we've raised over $100,000 going towards Magen David Adom, and we are very close to having raised enough to dedicate our own ambulance, which is going to be really remarkable and just a credit to all of you. And today we're going to start something new. And Rebecca grew up here at Temple Israel in Charlotte. I'm going to introduce them in just a moment, but I want to thank her father, Zach, for bringing this project to my attention and for spearheading it locally. And we have a number of congregants who've made Aliyah, who've moved to Israel and built their lives there, and they've all had different experiences since the war started. And Rebecca was actually here when the war started. She was at shul that day, and unfortunately, I do remember you seemed obviously very shocked, like everybody else. And I know it's really a terrible time for you both. So I thank you both for your service, which you're going to talk about, and for sharing with us a little bit about that experience, what it's been, and how we can help. So I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves, and I'm just going to give you the first question to talk about is how did you both come to be living where you are in Israel? Tell us a little bit about your background. Becca, as I said, we know you grew up in Charlotte, had your bat mitzvah here in Temple Israel. That's probably your bat mitzvah teacher in the first row. Alex, we know a little bit less about you, but if you guys could introduce yourselves.
Definitely. Well, first of all, thank you guys all for being here and for leaving what I understood was a delicious breakfast to be here with us. I'm going to quickly introduce myself, and then Alex is going to do the same. You guys probably know me, so this is a bit easier. Rebecca Gerger. My father, Zach, is sitting, I see, in one of those rows. I grew up in Charlotte. I made Aliyah, moved to Israel 13 years ago. Can't believe that it's been that long at this point. For me, I actually, I grew up in Charlotte, didn't have my bat mitzvah at Temple Israel, went to Providence Day School, and I always had this sense of, I think a lot of us it's normal in the US, kind of growing up feeling like, learning about Israel and feeling like if there had been a place like Israel, during the events of World War II, we would have had a place to go. There needs to be a place for Jewish people. I always had that in my DNA, but felt a desire to be in Israel. I actually made the decision to make Aliyah and move to Israel in 2010 after I had done a year course program in Israel called Young Judea. During that year, there had been a war, an operation is what they would call it in Hebrew, compared to a war now. The first, how would you call it? Hasled in Gaza in 2008. And all the kids who were my age at that time were in the army. They were just other Israelis. And that's when it kind of, like we say in Hebrew, like nafali asiman, like I sort of woke up and said, wow, like I could go back to the US and be pro-Israel, go to university and sort of do that route. Or how is it possible, though, that other Jewish kids who are just born in Israel have to serve, have to go, and I'm not doing the same. So I ended up moving to Israel, serving in the IDF. I was what we call a lone soldier. I served in the combat unit. I met Alex in the end of my army service, and I guess the rest is history, and we'll talk more about that. But that's my story. Alex?
What was the question?
Just tell a little about yourself, how you got to Israel, general name, Aliyah day, life.
Okay. So my family moved to Israel from Moldova when I was 5-6 years old. We moved places. We based off of Haifa. Currently, we live in Or Akiva, which is close to Caesarea, Hadera, if you're familiar with that. I spent all of my education here in Israel, from a few months of kindergarten, then school. I spent, before the army, I was preparing in a youth movement for about 3 years to draft. Then I continued to a year of volunteering with different circles of education. I spent, what do you call it? A gap year? Like a volunteering year?
Like a prep mechina year.
Like I volunteered for a year before I drafted into the army. Spent 3 years in the army. Afterwards, I served in 669, which is an airborne rescue unit. Then after the army, I worked a little bit in agriculture and spent some time doing security for APAC. And then I spent 7 years in the Yamam. And now currently I'm serving in the Israeli bomb squad.
I'm going to back that up and then maybe I'll give a little bit about context.
Please.
Okay. I know that we're using a lot of like weird words and like it's okay. So both of us were combat soldiers in the army. It was in a general infantry unit. Alex served in an elite unit called 669. It's like airborne search and rescue. After the army, he did some security roles. He's just being kind of modest. He then served for about 7-8 years in a unit called the Yamam, which is a special counterterrorism forces unit, pretty much like Israeli SEAL team SWAT. Okay, they do hostage rescue, all of that. We can kind of get into that later, but this has been our past for a really long time, living in this world of, So and then in the last 2 years, he's been in the Israeli bomb squad unit, which is a special unit within the Israeli police force that specifically focuses on explosive bombs. And unfortunately, there's a lot of demand here in Israel for that type of work. And it's a very specific type of job that's very highly trained role within the police. I think we'll probably get into that a little bit further, but that's our lives. And I work in high.
Thank you guys. So I guess, I couldn't help but notice and comment about your very different backgrounds. One of the things that's incredible about Israel is we have an Olah from the United States and an Olah from the former Soviet Union. It's pretty incredible. That's two very different backgrounds and two very different Jewish stories and two different Israeli stories coming there, which is one of those incredible things about Israel. Can you tell me a little bit about the place where you live, Or Akiva? It's not a town that so many of us are familiar with.
I'll start and then Alex, if you want to. So we live in a town called Or Akiva. It's just really hard to pronounce. You could say Or Akiva and it's fine. If you guys are familiar with Caesarea, I guess we say in English, or Hadera, which is Charlotte's, I know it's our partner town.
Partner town, yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty much like a 10-minute drive from Hadera. We live in that area. We're right on the beach. We call ourselves in like North Center. So really close to Hadera, close to Caesarea. We decided to move here 2 years ago. We purchased an apartment in this area just because we didn't want to be in Tel Aviv. It was crazy too expensive and there's no nature. And we also didn't want to live too far away from Tel Aviv because I do work in Tel Aviv in my company. We love it. We live right on the beach and we're just grateful to have our own apartment and, the classic Israeli approach.
Not an easy thing to have your own apartment in Israel right now. It's quite expensive from what I hear.
Yeah.
So Becca, you said you were inspired to make Aliyah and to enlist in the Israeli Defense Forces in Tzahal, even though you didn't have to. Can you share a little bit about your service and what you did?
Yeah, it's actually pretty crazy. Whenever people ask me here in Israel why I moved to Israel, because Israelis are shocked that an American could possibly stay in Israel, like that I could choose not to go back to the US, because the life here is quite hard. I always tell them like, I made Aliyah for very idealistic reasons, but I wasn't sure that those reasons were still real until October 7th, actually. I I grew up in Charlotte, in the Jewish community. I was always very curious about what it is to be Jewish, sort of what is that identity? I don't know, like any person exploring their own identity ended up traveling to, my first time actually was through USY. I went to Israel, and that's when I started exploring, like, wow, there's this whole place that I never understood. That's, what it feels like to be in a country that's filled with Jews, and not to be a minority. Brought a lot of curiosity for me personally as a teenager. I then did this year course program. I eventually decided to, kind of like I was cueing before, I decided to make Aliyah. It really happened when I was here on a program, on a gap year. I was 18 years old in a program. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Young Judea. So I did Young Judea year course. And it was during that time that I had made friends with all these other Israelis who were my age. They were all in the army. And that didn't really mean anything until a war broke out that year. And that's when I started to sort of realize that they're the only, I don't know, as a Jewish person, it sort of felt strange that I would go back to the United States, yet these other Israelis, Jewish people who were born here, have to serve, and they're part of this, yet I still could call Israel my homeland or a place that I could go, but I wasn't part of that. So I eventually decided to make Aliyah. I specifically made Aliyah so that I could go to the army. I served in a combat unit, like a mixed male and female combat unit called Karakal. You might have heard actually in the news on October 7th, there were lots of Karakal Lochomot, like part of like female warriors, part of a lot of the efforts. My specialty in the army was that I focused on, like my unit it's an infantry unit, focused it's so different now because it's been like 10 years, focused in the border of Egypt. And it was before there was a wall there, right between 2010, 2012. So we did a lot of like any type of, I don't know if you guys are veterans, but basically guarding that area, doing a lot of like hiding in the field and waiting and just making sure that it's hard to explain. Patrols, lots of field work. And now I currently serve in Miluim. Because I was a combat soldier, I do have to serve in Miluim, so I serve in the reserve duty. Thanks, Alex. With the Palchats home.
It's like, how would you describe it? Like
search and rescue.
Within like disaster sites.
Yeah. And I actually was, it's kind of crazy because for many years I actually made Aliyah from this feeling that, if Jews don't have a place to go, where are we going to be? I wanted to defend that. And in the last few years, I started to doubt myself and think that maybe, not doubt myself, but, you start to get comfortable and you're like, wow, like the reasons that I stayed are not like why I came. I started to feel like maybe I'd been too idealistic. Maybe that wasn't real. Maybe that sense of, maybe I'd been exaggerating, really. And now after October 7th, I would not want to be anywhere else. I feel exactly like where I need to be. And that is true.
So let's go to, let's talk about October 7th and the days afterwards. And just, I share with people, here that that Becca and Alex, can't share everything about what they do. So they're going to be a little bit mysterious maybe about their work, but also that this has been an incredibly difficult time for them. They've lost friends right away, and on October 7th, and they're working through that grief. And I think some of it is what their project that they're taking on. So just wanted to ask you what you would share with us about the experiences on October 7th and in the days, the weeks afterwards.
Whatever.
I'll start and Alex can. Yeah, so first of all, I think we're still, like, I guess all of us are still processing what happened. It's like this box between what's real and what could, I don't know. We're still kind of getting through that. But generally, I was in the US when I found out about, everything happening. Alex, of course, was here. Ooh, where do we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a phone call from a unit, the bomb squad currently, telling me that something went down. It was like 6:37 in the morning. telling us that we need to go on call in case they need us. I had no idea what was going on. They told me just open the news, and the news was completely uncensored. It's hard actually to find the news that they showed back then today if you search for it on YouTube, because everything is kind of being censored, but it was completely raw footage of everything that's going on. And we just saw, but what I've seen, the first thing that I've seen was a white truck with a PK machine gun. Of course, a white Toyota. All the time, it's a white Toyota somehow. I saw them riding in the middle of the streets in Sderot, just shooting everything that moves. And I realized, we thought it was like some small penetration of a squad, which was the threat that we were all getting ready for. And slowly we realized that it's a little bigger than that. Nobody understood the scope of it because there was a problem with communications. Obviously, there was no forces available on the ground. There was no intelligence precursing this event. And basically, the first line of defense was the police of those towns, and my previous unit, the Yamam, which was their specialty is fast response to developing events, sort of say. Obviously, I couldn't reach anybody down south, and we all got updated during the day from my current unit, getting ready to go down south and help with whatever we can. My unit currently is defensive, not offensive. Our duty is dismantling bombs, munitions, and suicide vest, booby traps, those sort of things, rockets that keep falling. Respond to calls like that. That was on Shabbat.
Yeah.
Sunday Shabbat early in the morning, what we call Sunday morning, early in the morning, we went down south with my unit, still not knowing the scope of the event, what was going on. There were rumors circulating with our guys that left the previous unit that
so when you say previous unit, you and your mom?
I mean the Yamam. Currently I'm in the bomb squad. My previous unit is the Yamam, the counterterrorism unit, the hostage rescue unit. That some of our guys were injured or dead. Nobody knew the numbers, nobody knew the names. And this is how we went down south, not knowing what our mission is as well. We went there, got briefed, understood that the scope, throughout this whole event, nobody knows how many came in, what's going on. We just knew that there's an incredible barrage of rocket attacks, that there are lots of terrorists, and that there are booby traps. So our mission was to try to understand the threat and to respond to that. When we got there in the morning, I was notified that my best friend, my teammate, was dead. My previous commander was dead. One of my other teammates, a really good friend, was dead. All in total, 9 guys from the unit died that morning, stopping that attack, developing throughout the day, and around 30 other guys from the unit were injured and incapacitated that some sort of way. Some of them were killed in what do you call it? No, when the enemy is waiting for you.
I have no idea.
Ambush.
Ambushed. Some of them were ambushed. Some of them were, most of them were injured during, there was a few really central hot spots of hostage situations going on where they were taking the police station. I'm sure you've heard of
Sderot.
In Sderot. This is where Alexei, my best friend, got killed when they breached the compound. There was another huge hot spot in Be'eri where they were just running around and gunning everybody there. And during this whole phase, there's no intelligence, there's no actual command understanding what was going on and centralizing the information. It was based off of squads of 3, 4, 5 people that are just bunched up together from the unit and just went for it, for whatever there is, trying to get people out, not understanding who the enemy is, because lots of them were wearing IDF uniforms. And a lot of the guys actually came from their houses wearing flip-flops. Well, it's
a lot of the warriors like just showed up in flip-flops, like whatever they had in the house.
It's a funny story now because there's a bunch
of dark humor. We have to.
A bunch of them were fighting in flip-flops, and there's a picture of a guy with a machine gun and his boxers just going forward. And throughout the day, they started gathering more gear because cars from the unit came and they started look more and more like fighters and less like like I don't know what you call it.
Shabbatnikim.
Yeah, whatever.
Make a fundraising calendar.
Yeah, precisely.
Anyways, not knowing where Alexei, my best friend, died at that moment, they sent me to that spot, to the police station that was overrun. And my mission was to clear the dead bodies of the terrorists from explosives and any other threats that might have been left in the building or the surroundings there. So I spent half a day doing that, which is, I'm not going to go into that. It's unpleasant work. We just went between missions. Everywhere was scattered grenades and unexplosive ordnance, and there were booby traps that the mechanism failed and wasn't activated, but the bomb itself was there. So we had to find a lot of random missions, a lot of dead bodies that we had to identify whether it was enemy or our guys. Each body like that had to be cleared by an EOD guy. EOD is our explosive ordnance disposal, because some of the bodies were booby trapped. So nobody could touch anything before we cleared it. So it was a very Sisyphic work. Sisyphic is the right word?
Systematic?
Tedious.
Oh, tedious. Okay.
Whatever. So that's how I spent my whole day. And then I started, at the end of that day, I went back north so I could go to the funeral of the first guy, and then another funeral and another funeral. And between my shifts, because we have the privilege of working in shifts, so I was during the day or the night, I was on my shift, and during my rest hours, I went to all the guys' shivas in homes, and that's about the last 30 days. Has been going in and out of families and widows and stuff like that.
And
going back and forth between work and between grieving and comforting people.
Yeah, and when you guys saw me, probably some of you guys saw me on Shabbat on October 7th when I had heard, I get 12 calls from Alex. Being a military wife, when you get 12 missed calls from your husband at 5 a.m, that's like just not what you want. So I picked up the phone. I just remember waking up really strangely in the middle of the night and seeing all that and calling Alex, and then just immediately understanding, like, it's like, open the news, just look. And I started when I was in the army, I was in a program called Garin Sabar, and I also lived in the south of Israel. I lived in a kibbutz called Nir Yitzchak, which is like Eshkol, like one of the kibbutzim that was taken over on the border of Gaza. So like my rakezet of my Garin, the person who organized that, a lot of the kids and people my age who are from the Garin, from the kibbutz that we all knew, couldn't reach anyone. I had like an adopted family from the kibbutz, couldn't reach anyone. At the same time, I'm finding out that Alex is waiting, like we don't know what's happening in the South, and all of our closest friends are there, and I'm just in the US, and I just don't know what to do. And I just, I don't really remember a lot of like the week that I was home, because I think I don't know. That's how it goes, I guess, when it's really messed up. But the next day on Sunday, when I heard about Alexei, that's when I also was told that Alex told me that Alexei had died. He was our best man at our wedding, very like family. All the guys in the unit are. These are guys like they live together in the Yamam, like they're our family. Their wives are my best friends. Like we all are close. When we found out about Alexei, I also knew that Alex was in the field. My shikulim, like my thought process was just like, be a support, don't freak out. He's got work to do. He's under fire. Like he's also in working in dangerous zones while finding out about all this. And just like, we need to stay, I don't know, somehow some type of stability because everything seemed to be like bad after bad after bad. At the same time, I'm also finding out about my kibbutz that like 2 people that I know quite well were taken hostage, like kidnapped into Gaza. And we're just everyone's sort of trying to manage. And I just when I found out about Alexei, I got the first flight that I could back to Israel. And got here a few days after that and have been here since. We've sort of been both trying to, I think like the Israeli experience, like if I was to sum it up, is like we're all trying to somehow cope. I don't know if coping is the right word, but figure out what happened and deal with that. And also like deal with so much loss, but also like we have a war to fight. Like everyone's doing something and is active and in Gaza or in the north, like it just doesn't stop. So we're
that it's like you've taken on a number of projects in addition to the very important work that you're doing. And I know working with your father and a group here, and those projects include fundraising for supplies for different military and police units. And I know from talking to Zach that you already had one very successful drive for raincoats that went to one particular unit that's in Gaza right now. I think you said, Zach. And now your project is you're raising money for bulletproof vests. And I'll put it out there that while we all have lots of friends in the Jewish community and see the types of donations and contributions that Americans are making, and we hear about what people are doing, but I think it's a little bit hard for Americans to understand why we're contributing towards military supplies that you think the military would have. Could you tell us a little bit about how we come to this situation?
Yeah, I can do my best to like kind of sum it up, and Alex, if you want to like supplement that too. So this is a really common question. I think, we have to, first I want to make a distinction between like tactical gear that needs to be like, that's not socks, that's not shirts, they're not jackets, things that have an expiration date and are very, very specific and then inexpensive and do need to be replenished all the time, versus things like socks or underwear or headlamps, things like that. Now, okay, so now I'm going to zoom back out and then zoom in. I also asked this question, even me, an Israeli, like everyone in the army is always like, the reality is that 2 main things. First, the scale of this war, we've never seen this many people drafted at the same time. There's a war in the north and in the south, unfortunately. We have like extremely high amount of milunikim, reserve duty, hired up, as well as people like Alex and the police. There's now these Katot Konanut. I'm actually part of like a local security force. There's so much happening where there's a lot of fronts, a lot of people who have been called up. And what that requires is there's more demand for all supply when it comes to things that are needed for these soldiers. That's kind of the first thing. And I think when we talk about bulletproof vests in particular, the previous campaign that I did actually helped raise money and directly bring raincoats and boots to soldiers in the north and in Gaza at a special unit called Nachal. It's not uncommon right now. All these people were called up and they need very specific things, and not everyone has it before they're going into the field. When it comes to right now, we're actually trying to raise money for 34 bulletproof vests for Alex's police unit in the Chabala. Now you might be wondering, why do they not have enough bulletproof vests? At the moment, they have about 2 vests per team, and they rotate who has that, and that sits in the car. When they were down south, they didn't all have their own bulletproof vests. Whoever was going out wears it if they need it. and this is like under, how do you say in English? In non-neutralized areas, in combat.
Under battle conditions.
Yeah. Now, the thing about bulletproof vests, beyond the fact that they're expensive and they're very specific, in order for a unit, whether it's the police or the military, to hold bulletproof vests, they actually have to keep replacing them every few years, and they have to test them. So so within the police force, for example, they don't all have their own bulletproof vest. They share it on a team, and a lot of it also has to do with, it's not just like buying it once. They have to keep replacing. You might hear a really loud plane. This is very normal right now. Just really loud planes going above us all the time. So that's kind of the high level, is we're looking for the units trying to purchase bulletproof vests so they can be called immediately and everybody have their vests and go straight to work and be able to immediately operate. And that's common across the military as well, where they don't have enough for everyone who's going in.
The question was, why does Israel doesn't have enough so far? So all the forces that are in the army were serving
like people who are in active service, not reserve.
They have their gear. The problem is with all the reservists, which is the main fighting force of Israel. We're talking about around 320,000 soldiers that have been drafted for this effort. They're the ones who get stuck without the proper gear, but they are the main fighting force. Why the emergency warehouses are not completely stocked all the time is beyond me. I wanted to believe as well that everybody is going to have everything when they need it, but seeing just pictures from guys on the borders, they're still wearing not bulletproof vests. It's like a shrapnel.
Like a
shrapnel
cushion
protective layer.
Yeah.
Which is not good for direct fire. It's from the first Lebanon war, which was in the 80s. It's beyond me why we don't stock up, and why there's not everyday manufacturing of this in Israel. But the situation currently, the situation currently is that those vests expire every time, every few years, every 5 to 10 years, the ceramic plates have to be changed. Now, if you give it to a system, it has to follow those expiration dates laws. It doesn't necessarily deem the vest incapable of stopping the rounds, but when you are in a system like the IDF, when the expiration date comes, you have to get rid of it, no matter if it's good or not. It abides by a certain standard. That's how they rotate out of service. Why they don't rotate back into service and supplying all the reservists with them, I think is a huge, how do you say it without cursing?
Mess up.
Yeah, we got the imprint. We got the idea.
You guys have ever
in Hebrew.
See, everything about the planning here is short term. In the military, we couldn't have planned for this scale. Maybe they could have planned for it, but they didn't. And we are now, our husbands, our best friends, people are in large scale out in the field in both the North and the South. And this is the reality of our current situation in the supply for soldiers.
It sucks also to see the system incapable of supporting its own people. And there's a little bit of sensation of guerrilla organizations, like trying to get up gear, and we need helmets and we need the vest, and these guys don't have protective eye gear, and these guys don't have whatever raincoats. It sucks, and it's disappointing seeing the situation, but that's what it is. It's ugly. That's the current situation. In my unit, for example, what Becca was trying to say about the two vests is that we have like 2 guys on call at work at all times, and that's what the police they have taken. They have they have 2 slots for like 2 vests for our unit, because they have to set those expiration dates, they always replace them every 5-10 years. There's like a slot for money dedicated for it. Now, for example, when we've been called, the whole unit comes. So it's like the whole 30 people need to arrive on the spot. And there's like still 2 vests for those 2 guys that's supposed to be on call daily.
It doesn't make anybody happy.
That's how the gap is created
yeah.
between what we would wish to be and what there is. It's just basically there's not enough daily budget to upkeep that certain slot of equipment.
Yeah.
As people who read the news here, we hear about which generals, which military staff have taken responsibility on themselves, and we assume that there's going to be a large scale evaluation of the things that went wrong. And we appreciate that we're talking about what's happening right now. How do we respond to a situation? And I'm going to guess that most Americans, or no Americans, should go on Amazon and search for a bulletproof vest and send it to Israel. That's not how that works. Could you explain to us how this process works?
I'll take this, honey. High level, we've actually, I've been through part of this, but with the bulletproof vest is even more specific. Anytime you get something that's tactical, that's very specific, it needs to be pre-approved by the unit that's receiving it. This is also, if anybody you have already been part of this process, sometimes it really has to be done in a linear way. So Alex's unit, I've already submitted the request. We have a formal request, and they're formally going to give permission for these 34 vests. And his unit commander has already made the purchase order of 34 bulletproof vests, okay, from a company that they're already using. So it's the equipment that they're already using that's been pre-approved. And this order is the Amuta. I'll explain that in a moment. The charitable fund.
501c3 or the nonprofit, something like that.
Already submitted the request to the unit, and we're going to get that back. In terms of the process and how much we're looking to raise and how that's going to work, there's a charitable fund, and I think we're going to share all the details in the link afterwards. Basically, that this is how we also raised the money for the previous purchase. They're going to make the purchase of these 34 vests once we raise this amount of money. And then as donors, if anybody is open or willing to be part of this, you will have a link where you can go in and choose how you'd like to pay. And I believe, Rabbi, if you'd like to jump in and kind of give a highlight, I just don't, as to how that, you guys are very familiar with this, I'm sure on your end, but it's based on the United States. You're getting.
When we donate to, when we support Magen David Adom, we work through the American Friends of Magen David Adom, which is an American charitable organization that contributes, that supports Magen David Adom. The Kabbalah doesn't have its own American Friends of version, and I think that's the challenge that that we're facing with this. So from talking to Zach, I understand that you and your friends and your colleagues who have organized are working with a recognized American not-for-profit called Yad Eliezer. It's a charitable organization that supports generally food needs in Israel, but they've shifted their work in the last few weeks to support projects like this. And I think as either Zach or Becca, explained to me that in addition to the vests being approved, even where the money comes from has to be vetted before it is contributed. And this organization, if you give through them, they are approved to be a donor to these to the Kabbalah, to your unit. Does that sound correct?
It does. And that's what I'm trying to get at. That's really important, because anytime you're talking tactical gear like this is where these types of donations from the United States to Israel many times fail. And we've found the way around that because we are working directly with the organization to do that. If you guys would like, I can show you guys some pictures and some context about what we're going to be purchasing. But that's kind of the process. That's how it would look and how it would feel.
I'm just going to tell people what we're going to do at the end. I'm going to, after we're done with this, I'm going to send out the link to the people here. I'm going to ask them for their email addresses. We'll have many of them, and we're going to share that link so they can see what it is. But yes, if you could show us some pictures and context.
Yeah,
do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. But just before I go into that, you're probably wondering how much are we looking to raise for this specific order? Like I like to be as targeted and clear as possible. So we're really looking within the next week or 2 weeks to raise money for these 34 vests. These 34 vests total come out to be around 94,000 shekels, which comes out to be a total of $24,500 ish, give or take. That's kind of the seder goda. That's kind of the amount of money we're looking to raise. And once we get that, of course, the Amutah, the charitable fund, is going to make that purchase. In terms of what the amount, like what the actual vest looks like, maybe a couple pictures of Alex working as well, just to embarrass him a little bit here. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar, you know, a lot of Israelis are like, if I tell you, I have to kill you, if I have what to do. It's really hard to get pictures of Alex and what he does, just any pictures at all. So I did my best. What I'm going to show you guys is, you know, some high level pictures. Okay. Can everybody see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. So this is Alex. This
Looks like he's enjoying the beach.
enjoying the beach, dismantling some sort of bomb or whatever in his bomb squad gear. Looks very light. I'm sure very sure it is. This is actually a picture of Alex and Alexei. This is our best friend, best man from just brother from the unit who passed, that we were talking about, over the Kavan Sterot, the police station on October 7th. Okay. Oh, this is me with my dad and Peely during my army service. Yes, I was a grenade launcher, so my gun was just about half the size of my body. There we are. This is the vest that we're looking at. I know it's really an advertising picture. It's just a basic tactical vest with the ceramic plates inside. Shun, do you want to talk about the company who provides this? It's based in Israel, high level.
Yeah, there's the main company in Israel called Marom Dolphin. They're basically the main supplier of textile gear and protection to Israel, body protection. Currently, they're completely overrun by orders. Also, private citizens cannot order from them at all. Me, let's say I want to get a vest, I cannot. Only the system, the police can petition for an order because they only prioritize now security forces. So there's nothing going on in private sales for them currently, only dedicated towards certain units.
Yeah.
So you have to petition for a large quantity per unit to get even to enter the manufacturing line.
Yeah.
For them. But they're a solid company, vetted. All the units use them. All the units are using them. It's nothing. It's not Gucci gear. It's just basic stuff that works.
Yeah, and what I will do, if you guys would like, I mean, we're very transparent. The process we've been working with, because it's working with the police as well, to get these permissions has been very straightforward. Happy to share the purchase order, what you're looking at if you're curious, like which company, things like that, the cost per unit. But that's kind of $24,500 is really what we're looking to raise to be able to make that purchase for those 34 vests. Wish we could make more and help get more. It requires that pre-permission for each unit to receive these.
So at Temple Israel, you know, we have something called the Rabbi's Tzedakah Fund, which I use to support different organizations. I'm going to start by contributing $1,000 towards the vests that you are seeking and desperately need for your unit, and I hope that will start inspiring other people as well. And we're going to make it possible for them to contribute. Can I open it up to the floor for some questions? Are you guys okay doing that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would anyone like to? Here we go. Hold on, Lynn.
So I find it very disturbing that you don't have the equipment you need. The millions and millions of dollars that federations across the United States are sending to Israel, what does that generally go towards? And without getting political, it's very disturbing that our Congress is holding up aid and holding it hostage. How is that affecting you right now on the ground?
That's a great question. Actually, when I was in Charlotte, thank you for that question. Because like when I was in Charlotte, when there was the vigil, like I believe it was a few days, like a couple, it's hard for me to remember, a couple days after October 7th at the JCC, I'd asked if I could speak, but because I thought this is like everyone knew that there'd be a lot of people drafted, but at the same time, so you asked about where the money for like the Jewish Federation, a lot of the American Jewish communities, where it's going to, it's really going to these more like long-term treatments for the like for the communities and trauma care as well for people who have in the South who went through so much, both rebuilding those communities and also trauma care. That's what I understood, at least when I was there. It's really the kind of, and that's also very important, but that's more long-term. I mean, it's hard for me to say, but we're also in the middle of a full-scale war. So like, understandably, larger organizations in the United States, like Jewish, it is easier to get behind something that is a little bit less specific, wider, longer term. Everybody wants trauma care. Everyone wants rebuilding communities. That's not political. And that's great. For us, it's also not political, but we're in a war. So that's kind of been, when I did ask the Federation, and they were just so graciously saying like, hey, like just for now, this is where our group is aligned. This is where the money's going. As an American Jew, it's been really hard for me to like personally to share with my community. On one hand, it's one thing to say like, it is hard to say, can you get behind something that is related to security? It's a bit different than longer term trauma care, but the reality on the ground is there's a lot of very tangible needs, and we're focused on our existence and winning this war. So it's
throughout my service, I've actually encountered a lot of the endpoints for those funds, and I've seen a lot of different implementations, because we never receive money or anything. We receive, let's say, a whole training complex would be built, or there would be a community center that's completely rocket, like a bomb shelter, but the place that kids can be in, not isolated in their houses, but can be together in like this huge enclosed playground with climbing walls, or like those things you jump into, the soft cushions. It's like something to maintain the everyday life. Or for example, armored cars, which are extremely expensive, where they're millions of dollars worth. They're being built. They're not being custom ordered. They're being actually built. That's a lot of the money goes into that. Also, now we currently received for those every city in Israel. What Becca is part of now, this quick response force based on civilians that served in the armed forces. Every civilian can apply, like Becca did, because she was a fighter in the army. She was chosen to be in our city's quick response team, received aid from America in a form of a personal gun that they got now.
A long gun to protect the city.
Right. So there's like a squad in the city now based off of American aid. Also, us in the police, we, like we said before, we had 2 vests in the car. We had 1 rifle in the car. So now we got a bunch of rifles as well from American aid. So we actually see a lot of that coming. Also, we just got medical gear, tourniquets, and wound dresses. So we see it coming in. Mostly, I assume it shows up on the borders, less in the depth of Israel, in the center where we are. But it's not like it's disappearing somewhere. We constantly see. I don't know if that answers your question.
So it's showing up. We don't know where it's where. I know when I was in the US just now, a lot of the existing funding and at least the way that it's going out seems to be for something a little bit different. But there's of course funding. We don't know exactly whether it's coming. The guns came from the government, but the equipment for soldiers, how that's going through.
A lot of it goes to big projects like Iron Dome.
Like for the Congress, probably a lot of the money in that area is probably more going to these very large projects like Iron Dome. But me and Alex aren't part of like how that's distributed and where it goes. All we see is the outcome. Like I just see my husband in a non-neutralized zone without a bulletproof vest. I see my friends out, he's patting my back because he doesn't want me, we don't like to go to this direction, but and it's scary. I guess you don't have that control. You don't know who's getting what. It's a large system and we're in a large scale war. So where these resources go, whether it comes from the Jewish community, donations, or from the US government, we are,
as you point out, there are so many there's so many needs, and I think that each organization has its its niche. And there's some money that is given very specifically for particular projects like we're talking about, but there's also the money that's given towards those larger projects that that you spoke about, and they both they're both important. They're both important ways of giving.
absolutely. There's so much happening. It's overwhelming.
Here's another question from Nicholas.
Yeah, Rebecca, in terms of finding a US-based organization through which to channel your funds, a 501c3, did you consider the Friends of the IDF? Because that organization is often eligible for matching funds, whereas Yad Eliezer probably may not be.
That's a good question. I actually can hand that. Me and my dad did a lot of research on this as well, but from a very high level, it's more about just control on the order from our end, knowing that we have this particular purchase order and that the Amutah, the charitable organization, will pay for it. I was an outcome of FID. I as a lone soldier, I remember doing some programs for FIDF. They're great organization. I don't know where their funds exactly are going. I'm sure it's going to really important places as well. Like, this is not mutually exclusive from other areas. I'm actually, is my dad in the room? I can't see him, but I saw him before. Dad, if you want to help answer the second part of that question, I would appreciate that, because we did do some research here.
I'm Zach Gerger, Rebecca's father. So we started this project. They're very modest about this, but this is a very grassroots sort of situation. A good friend of theirs, Yaniv, was a member, a reserve member, leader from Nahal, which you may have heard in the news, is one of the units that's actually operating very forcefully in Gaza right now as we speak. And he said that they needed boots and raincoats. And so we worked that out and we got the donations. I contacted many other charitable organizations in the United States, because one of the key features is for all of us to get a tax deduction. Sadly, it made it much more palatable. And so FIDF was one that I called at the beginning, but they were way overrun with people like me, and they were not real incentivized to work on at the time, it was an $11,000 project. They're in the millions and millions of dollars, and there are people donating millions of dollars. And the other key feature in this project, the last one and in this one, is what they said, and I just want to highlight this, is that the invoice is created. Things work a little differently in Israel. You make the order. I'm going to just stand up. You make the order, and when you create the order, an invoice is generated to be sure that that's in fact the very product that you can take, are eligible to take, that the Army will allow you to take. The raincoat is the right color, it's the right size, it's the right number. That invoice is created, and then it's approved by some military people. And then when we get the money, amazingly, we got Yad Eliezer, somebody at this food bank, essentially, to pay for it. And so we have created that connection. And I don't know how it's done exactly on their end, but what I was insisting upon was the absolute transparency of this. So like Rebecca said, we have the invoice that is written in Hebrew, but it's the 93,000 shekels. And it shows that this is a purchase order being requested by the police, and that once the money is there, Yad Eliezer can pay it. And the other thing is that police don't want to buy something from a bunch of Iranian terrorists. So they have to be sure that this organization is vetted by them, that they're not getting it from bad places. So Yad Eliezer, again, qualifies as that type of organization. And it's located in Cedarhurst, New York, by the way. So it has a tax ID number, it's all legit. They give you a receipt, et cetera, et cetera.
Thank you, Zach, for explaining that. We got to.
I was just saying, Rebecca, that do you have proof of concept that the raincoats actually got where they were going?
I
As your
do.
First step.
Yeah, I do. I do. It's
Let me just speak to that for 1 second. Is I insisted upon that. And what I have is 2 very sweet videos from Yaniv with the raincoats after he unloaded them,
soldiers.
about to deliver them. And what I'm waiting for, unfortunately, is I wanted the fashion show, right? I wanted the raincoats on the guys, and I can't get the fashion show because they're kind of at work. And
So-
but I got Yaniv.
A little bit of that. Yaniv is a personal friend of mine.
Work with APAC,
We
right?
work together at APAC.
Yeah.
The problem with Yaniv, he is volunteering his own time. He's going, doing all this stuff, going up north to the borders. The borders are currently under
Major attack.
major
I don't know what I'm
threat
saying in the
by
news, I'm
Hezbollah.
proud.
What?
I'm just adding by mumbling. Sorry.
There's a huge problem coming up even closer to the soldiers to give them the raincoats. They have to coordinate for some non-fighter guy to go down south and to meet with Yaniv so he can pass it to them. And then that guy passes it to the guys in the field because they're all spread out in combat positions. They're not centralized anywhere. They're being supplied in the field by military vehicles. The whole
have phones, field work.
north strip of Israel is being evacuated from citizens, and it's currently under complete military rule because Hezbollah is firing rockets daily, anti-tank controlled missiles into vehicles that move on those roads. So Yaniv drove up there one day and was under the whole thing was bombarded by mortars, and he decided to come back. And then at some other, like a few days later, they told him he can come up a little closer. Everything up there is exposed. So first of all, it's really hard to actually get it to them, which he did. But getting the guys,
videos requires people to have phones.
All the fighters, they don't have their phones. Everything's been taken away from them for operational security.
We do have a video, but not the fashion show that I wanted. They're like saying thank you, but it took about a week. My dad, we can again once I'm keep pushing on this, but it was distributed. It was distributed at the right time because the fact that we can't reach them means that they actually have the equipment at the time that they needed it. In the north and the south, but now the focus has been the north. Yaniv took a lot of the raincoats in the end to the north too, because I don't know how much is happening in the US news where they're talking about it. We're also not hearing a lot about. There's a lot happening in the north, and they are wearing raincoats and the boots deep into the trenches of warfare where they don't have their phones.
Because it just started raining.
Yeah, so we are getting sometimes updates, and the fact that I can't reach them and can't see the fashion show tells me that they actually needed it immediately and got to them in time.
Yes, Cantor Schwartz says the Geshem prayer worked on Shmini Atzeret. Better and for worse. So I think I'm gonna give one more question and then we'll wrap up.
Hi, I'm Karen Noble. Rebecca, I'm Anna Bobro's mom, and she knew you at Providence Day. You came over her house for swimming and stuff. So, and Anna's been thinking a lot about you, and I wanted to tell you that. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of what your daily life is during these difficult times? And one question I had specifically is, there are only 24 hours a day, and you guys are busy, but how do you address your mental health needs, because I'm sure that they're pretty, yeah.
That's first of all, thanks for saying that. It's so great to, I don't know, it's really moving for me to be able to speak with people from home, it's from so far away. Day to day, it's sort of a dynamic day to day. When I first got here, the focus was just like cooking food, having some sort of normal day to day life. Alex was very happy about that. It was a hard time. We were devastated, but also he had to keep working. We were going from like funerals to hospitals to shivas, just too much. My day-to-day now, I actually do still work. I work in a high-tech company. I mostly work with American clients and prospects and companies abroad. So I think that if you ask like what is the 24-hour, it's changing. Like at the very beginning, it was just like actually in the morning or in the day, I would go to a hospital to see a friend or a shiva or some event with, you know, some sort of memory or something like that. And then in the evening, I would work. Alex was at work. I have, since I got here, I actually do, like I mentioned, I do reserve duty. So there's a chance that I will have to go to reserve duty, which would mean I will actually sleep on a base 7 days a week, come home like for it's 7-3. So for us, so it's like mostly being gone and then coming home every 7 days for a couple of days and then going back. I don't know where my unit is right now. Because I was in the US, I actually was called up, but I was not there. And then when I got here, they didn't want to draft me right away. So I've been home. Alex is working. That's kind of the tangible day to day. And we're just very focused on like getting some sort of routine. And just in terms of mental health, like at least for me, it's just been like finding a routine, finding something to do. If it's like seeing friends, we spend a lot of times with our friends from the unit, or we spend a lot of time just like together, just doing like some sort of scheduled activity. It's changing. So
I think you kind of missed a little bit because we spend the last 30 days. It's really weird that 30 days already passed, but we spend the whole time actually moving between. We didn't have to work to set up a schedule because we both work, and then in our free time, we're either going to the shivas or to funerals or to visit the wounded in hospitals. Or you like got some raincoats, and I went there to see the facility, and then I realized that there's a huge order that some mom decided to buy a crazy amount of vests, but the vests were Chinese crap, so we had to work to open a whole like a stitching facility based on volunteers, so they could fix those vests so they would actually be load bearing and not depending on 2 weak points. There's a lot of little things that had to be done, and we've like Becca have been really, like you would say, an eshet chayil in English, whatever, trying to actually manage some food in the kitchen between us running around. But it's been 30 days of us running around, which I find very helpful to keep us completely tangible, busy. And most of the days we just come down and I fall asleep on the couch with the dog
at the office.
And I think this is the healthiest way to deal with it currently, because it settles in very slowly. And when we visit the family of our guys, there like lands, we go to the cemetery, to the chasifat, like after the 30 days. I don't know how you say it in English.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how to say it either.
It just like the Jewish
traditions.
The Jewish mourning process has been, to me, actually, after I left the unit, I thought I passed that phase of my life where I have to deal with those things, and I breathed a sigh of relief, because I thought it pasach alai. It was like it
passed. You finished with that.
With that, I'm not going to encounter that anymore. So I haven't really encountered that intensively in my service. And when I got struck with the loss of friends, to me, it was the first time that I realized how structured the Jewish mourning process is, where it allows you to actually process it very methodically and slowly with the whole Shiva, and then the 30 days and the first revealing the tombstone. And it's like there's a schedule to mourning.
We've been leaning on that tangible.
And to me, it was strange to find that out in that way, but I think that without it, it would have been much harder to find a center based around the family or based around social gatherings that the Shiva allows you to do. So that, together with constantly moving towards some work, is very helpful. If that answers
Maybe in
the
like
question.
30 more days or like in a few months, we'll have a different like summary of it. We're very much focused in the tangible right now. The things in
It's very hard to take the big picture look at this point.
yeah, but it's
So-
those things are really important to us right
So I
now.
want to first thank you guys both for spending some time with us this morning, and for your incredible service to Israel and to other Israelis, and I would say to the Jewish people as well, and for what you're doing right now to help your friends who are all serving. It was very important for me to have you guys talk, because although everyone who's in this room and everyone at Temple Israel, probably reads the news obsessively at this point, probably a little more than is good for most of us. We operated a little bit of a remove from what's going on in Israel, and to talk to you two who are on the ground there can tell us what actually happens on a daily basis, and to realize that you grew up in Charlotte, you're one of us, and that kind of reinforces that connection that we have with people who live in Israel. Anything in conclusion you'd like to share with us?
I would like to share one or a couple, like just kind of, first of all, I really appreciate you guys for being here. It really means a lot to me personally, because, it's like you want to connect with, for me, it means a lot to be able to connect with the community that I came from and like feel like this is an important topic. Like it means a lot. Anybody, if you guys know anyone who has questions and wants to speak with someone, or just like want to have a conversation, or if you guys ever hear something and want to have a conversation, like I'm an open book and happy to talk with, if you guys know other people or yourselves would like to reach out. And I don't know, like I know how hard I remember during the second Lebanon war being in the US and wanting to know what was happening, but being so far away. So I'm happy to do that, like without loaded by feel free to reach out. I'm with love, like want to share. I think this shared experience is really important. And I think for us here, it's like we're also looking to the US, seeing what's going on in the news, and we've been staying away, but it means so much that we have the Jewish community and we have our community. And it's seeing the news has raised a lot of doubts for us, like what's happening? How is this possible? How do people not understand what happened here? And we're trying to find ways to share the information, but it feels so strange to talk about something that was so traumatic so openly as well, to get people to believe you. And, I'm sure you guys are feeling it too. So I personally am happy to speak with anyone who would, if you guys would like to reach out afterwards.
I'm happy to provide her email address if you'd like to talk to her.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to apologize if my babbling was incoherent. This is
You were great.
This is a whole strange position for me to be in, on public speaking on Zoom or at all. I'm not accustomed to that. I'm also not accustomed to be on this side of the equation. So I apologize for that, and I want to just say thank you for listening, for your time.
Thank you both, and I know we'll talk again. And I just wanted to share, as I said, I'm going to start by making a contribution towards the purchase of these vests, and already someone else in the room committed to contributing $1,200. So we're happy that we're able to participate and to help your unit in this really dark time. So thank you both, and get some rest.
Thank you, guys. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.